Yes, I went voluntarily or whatever. I guess I just thought that going on the rock pool tour might be less depressing than spending another afternoon alone, pampering myself in the hotel room. I'm a rubber dinghy saleswoman, so I've pretty much been up and down every inch of shitty coast on this miserable island. Yes, my life is selling rubber dinghies to nasty little families on their coastal holidays. Laugh all you want. There's nothing you can say that I ain't already heard from my sister. Anyways, there's nothing much that marks out Great Wellmouth from any of the other seaside towns I've been to. Same shitty fish and chips, same shitty arcades, same shitty hotel porn. Rock pools, I thought. That'll be different. Different, yes. But still shitty. I arrived 15 minutes early. That was my first mistake. Arriving 15 minutes early to a rock pool tour. What am I, a fucking Girl Scout? Anyway, I'm standing there waiting, and I'm looking into this bric-a-brac store, and the big greasy guy behind the counter is picking his pimple, and I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing here? If this is Great Wellmouth, then I'd sure like to see what shit Wellmouth looks like, am I right? And finally, the guy manages to pop this pimple, and I think, well, there you go. There's an event. And I'm just about to go home when I see two nipples coming towards me, like rock hard. They've managed to make it through 2 layers of lycra. This guy's not even wearing a jacket. And he strides over to me and says, "Are you here for the rock pool tour?" That's one of those questions in life where you really got to look at yourself. Yes, I say, but in a like, don't talk to me kind of a way, in a sort of, I'm here to look at some crabs and then fuck off home. I'm not here to make friends kind of way. Lycra titties. He doesn't get the message. And he's just about chewing my ear off when I notice 3 lumps gathered behind him. His wife, I guess, is a sort of cabbagey looking woman. And then there's these 2 horror film little freak shows behind him that must be his kids or whatever. And I'm just about to make some excuse and go home when this little guy scuttles over. He looks like a crab himself, all eyes and limbs and helmet hair. Well, anyway, he waves us all over and says, "Let's rock and roll." And before I even have time to kill myself, I'm down at the beach. So we get to the 1,000,000th rock pool, and I'm thinking, yep, that's a rock pool, all right. And I'm just about crying with boredom. And the little crab guy's come in his pants, just talking about barnacles. And Lycra Titties is bending my ear about his city job and how it's great to get away with the family once in a while. And I'm looking at his cabbagey wife, and she got these big sad eyes, like a goldfish, you know? And I'm thinking, well, at least I'm not married to Lycra Titties. At least there's that. So we're walking up these cliff tops to get an aerial view. Except no one cares anymore. No one's even listening. And there's this couple recreating ocean sounds right behind me with their mouths. And I'm not being funny, but I think about throwing myself off for a second. They're damned high. And the little crab guy's squeaky voice is going on and on and on about longshore drift. And Lycra Titties is practically scrambling off a cliff trying to keep up with him to argue some point about sedimentary rocks. When suddenly, he slips. And that's it. He's off the edge. and there's a splat. And then there's dead silence. And for the first time all afternoon, I hear the ocean. The crab guy's the first to go forward, and he peeks over the edge and gasps. And then everyone else rushing forward, moving quicker than I've seen all day. There he is. All lycra and blood and rock pools. And I look over at his wife, and she got this sort of interested smile on her face, you know, like she just found a lobster or something. And it is pretty interesting. All his bones mashed up and stuff. So I guess it wasn't a waste after all. I guess I'm glad I went on that so-called rock pool tour.
I hate that you don't smoke for 3 reasons. Number 1, cigarettes after sex, obviously. Number 2, I can't steal cigs off you. And number 3, you'll never appreciate how sexy I look with a cigarette in my mouth. Call me crazy, but I like the smell. That's why I hate it when you wash your bed sheets. I like musky smells. They're comforting. The way your bed smells of sweat and sex and something sort of nutmeggy. I love that. But you always insist on washing that smell away. Keep them dirty, I say. I went back into your room yesterday just to smell the sheets, and you'd wash them. And it didn't smell of anything at all. Clothes. I fucking hate your clothes. I always have, always will. You dress like a dad. And I guess I might as well tell you now that that shirt you thought you lost, the one with the spots on it, yeah, you didn't lose it. I cut it up. Yeah. You laughed at my flat, and Lacey was over and she saw it and she said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's Devesh's." Anyway, we were really drunk and we thought it would be funny to cut it up. It was funny. I hate how on the weekends, on Saturdays, you wake up at the crack of dawn to play football, and you always wake me up, and then just when I get back to sleep, you come back in all sweaty and you refuse to shower before you try and get back in bed with me. And I know you'll say, "I thought you liked musky smells." I do like musky smells. I hate that you don't get along with my family. And I wish you tried harder, because you knew how important that was to me. And I know it's their fault. It's not yours, but sometimes you just have to be extra nice and you try extra hard even when they're being dicks, because that's just family. And I fucking hate it when you eat mangoes. because what kind of a psycho eats the skin? And I hate it when we go out together, because we never make it to the end of the night before one of us practically drags the other home to fuck. And I especially hate that we became one of those fucking couples who stays in bed and watches series instead of going out with friends. I wish you'd never introduced me to Midsummer Murders. Fucking Midsummer Murders. Yeah. No. I don't want to think about the number of hours we spent watching people get brutally battered to death in the countryside. I hate that you think you're invincible, because you do things that make me so nervous, and you always tell me I'm being neurotic, but sometimes I'm not. Sometimes you're just being stupid. Like when you didn't wear a bike helmet, even though I told you about 100 times that you have to, and that one day something bad was going to happen. It doesn't matter. I hate that you didn't listen to me. I hate that everything could have been different.
The ways of a woman have always been a mystery to me. A gentleman has no business knowing the ins and outs of such a delicate thing as the female mind. I explained as much to Harriet, that even in the nature of expressing such thoughts as those of woman, they lose their very substance, for they are made of such light and gossamer materials as air, and disappear as such when spoken. When she asked me to buy her the corset, I was delighted, for she had never before shown such interest in feminine things. The only gifts she would accept from me were butterflies, which she pinned to a board and kept in her chambers. Although I thought this morbid, I permitted it, understanding that butterflies are feminine creatures who have no insides but are greatly decorated without. I absolutely forbade the sticking of bees or other flying insects, and was immovably firm on the matter of taxidermic mammals. So you can imagine my surprise when, upon knocking on my study door, she asked for the corset. So delighted was I that I put away my work for the day and took her to town that very afternoon. The lady in the shop packed it up handsomely in a wooden box. I noticed little change in her after that, except perhaps a decreased appetite, and she continued to spend most of her time at her parlour tending to those butterflies. Imagine my great pleasure then, when she asked for the gloves. Harriet was so taken with them that she came to the habit of wearing them every day, even in bed, and of course the corset, which I thought nothing of other than imagining it to be the female obsession with material objects. After that came many other requests for scarves and blouses, skirts and stockings. I, being perhaps more sensitive to female whim than is sensible, obliged every time. Her bedchamber became littered with the coffins of our purchases. It is around the time of the shoes that I really began to notice the change in her. I remember her saying something most odd as we left the house to purchase the satin pumps that had been her last desire. She said, "I hope to enjoy the fresh air today. After this, I don't think I shall be able to leave the house again so easily." Taking this to be the usual sneezing of the female brain, I thought little of it, but lo and behold, Harriet never did leave the house again, but rather spent all her time in bed. She did, however, retain the full dignity of costume, right down to the new slippers on her feet. And finally, she asked for the hat. She'd seen one in a catalogue that had a most lavish plume of ostrich feathers. Upon seeing the price, however, I had to refuse. I had quite long enough bent to her whims, and to tell you the truth, was noticing the financial burden of her newfound femininity. She was heartbroken, and for weeks would talk of nothing else. She grew weaker and weaker in her bed, the result of so pining for this hat that in the end I acquiesced. When I returned with it, she sighed with pleasure and bade me put it at her side. Much to my surprise, she remained true to her word. After that day, she never asked me for one other thing. In fact, she never uttered a word at all. In truth, this was such a welcome break from all her clamouring for gifts over the preceding months that I did not question the silence for quite some time. Of course, I still checked on her every day and saw her to be perfectly happy, or understood her to be, for I could not actually see her face under the hat. It was only when I noticed my handkerchief missing that I thought to go to her room, my last memory of having the object being on the date that we had purchased her shoes. Thinking her asleep upon entering, I went myself to that wooden box to see if that mischievous item had housed itself in the folds of its satin lining. My horror upon opening this box was unimaginable. For there, nestled into the pale folds of silk, were two neatly severed feet. I gasped and dropped the box with a loud bang, loud enough, I suppose, to wake my wife. But she did not stir. I was unable to speak the words to demand an explanation, so instead tore open the box for the corset. Expecting to see its plain bottom, I was instead met with a puddle of organs. How horrific for me to have to wade through intestines, small and large, as well as a stomach, and what I assumed to be a spleen. Next, the glove box, where I was met with the bloodied and sinewy stumps of two elegant little hands, whereupon I noticed the glint of a ring against those vampire and bloodied fingers. A ring I knew well, for it was my wife's. I then tore open all the boxes to find ensuing limbs and most indecently severed body parts in each. Those slender calves, those childish ears, though tinged blue and swollen, I now recognized unmistakably to be my wife's. Finally, I came to the hat box. Upon opening its crown, I found inside my wife's small and dainty brain, dribblingly slightly onto the box's base. It is then that I looked to the bed and realized that, in fact, the form was not my wife at all. It was nothing but a pile of clothes.
I'm absolutely never lost for a fun fact. I suppose it's more of an anecdote than a fact, really, but no one ever minds because it's such a corker. So, pretend this is a job interview or something, and you ask me to tell you an interesting story about myself. I sit and pretend to think for a few seconds. You can't jump straight in or they'll know you always tell the same one. Then I cover my face with my hand like this and go, no, I couldn't. Then I take my hand away and bite my lip and say, well, it was a long time ago. Yes, now you say, oh, please tell, or something like that. Good. Then I say, well, when I was at school, and then sometimes they'll say, so not that long ago then. I've had that one before, actually. So, in the sixth form, I had to give a speech at the end of the year when everyone was leaving. Oh, I forgot to say, I was head girl. Not everyone gave a speech. So, the head girl gives a big leaving speech, And in the past, there had been some pretty spectacular ones. One year, a girl played the flute with her toes. Another girl gave her speech 24 different times in 24 different languages. I had a lot to live up to. I thought about it for weeks. I barely ate, barely slept. Mother was so worried. She even tried to help by giving me all these stupid ideas. "Why don't you do it standing on your head?" she said. And I was just about to hit her when it came to me. Just like that. Now, I know you want to know what the idea was, but I can't tell you yet. I have to let the suspense build. So, fast forward, and awards day is here. The evening finally gets going, a little off schedule, because the headmaster was late. Notice how I said late? You'll see why that was clever in just a second. So, the headmaster was late, but I suggested we start without him anyway. And I get up on stage, and I have this silver dish with a lid on it, and I feel a ripple of intrigue run throughout the room. But I'm not gonna give it to them yet. Nope, I'm gonna make them wait. So I give my speech, and there's a little theme running throughout, but it's very subtle. The kind of thing you only realize retrospectively. I say all sorts of things like, we need to get ahead in life, or head for the future. Things like that. And then, right at the end, I say, but if you don't believe me, just ask the head. And I pull the lid off the dish. And there it is, the headmaster's head. I cut it off, get it? The head. It was just so funny. You would have died. And his wife and his kids were there and everything. Oh my God. No one laughed at the time. I think they were all too shocked. And there was a bit of a mess afterwards. Some people just couldn't see the funny side. Mother managed to straighten it out in the end. But it sure did go down in history. And I usually get a laugh when I tell it now. But you want to shock people in a speech, in a job interview, or team building exercise, so they don't forget you. I should know, shouldn't I? I've done hundreds of job interviews in my time. So I should know. I should know how to make an impression.
My best friend, Albert, can fit 12 snails on his face. He actually got in the Guinness Book of World Records for it. If you don't believe me, you can look now, because I know exactly what page it's on. It's on page 367. The thing is, 12 isn't even that many. He probably only got in because no one had ever tried to fit more on before. At break times on Monday, Albert showed everyone in the playground. He sent Greta Gumpworth and Graham Gutterpup to go and find him the snails. And then when he came back, he put them all on his face. Everyone saw, even the really big kids in year 6. And there I was, standing right next to him. After that, Albert did it pretty much every day. At first, people still came to see, but on Wednesday, Otto Line Spring Step got a 7-meter skipping rope. Then no one cared about the snails anymore. when the policeman came to our school, I heard Miss Butterwax tell him that this was the moment it all went wrong. On Thursday, Albert announced that he was going to put 100 snails on his face. No one could believe it. At break time, we all went out to catch the snails, and I actually found the most out of everyone because I knew to look behind the climbing frame by the drain pipe, and I found 7 there. It was hard to stop them all escaping, especially seeing as I had 7 and most people only had 1 or 2. But I managed to fit most of them in my pencil case to keep them safe between break and lunch. Maybe I should call the Guinness Book of World Records for the most snails held in one pencil case. At lunch, everyone went to the climbing frame. We didn't even have to tell people where to go because everybody knows that that's me and Albert's spot. Then everyone put their snails into Albert's lunchbox. When Albert lifts up the first snail, everyone is quiet. Even Florence Mustard Breath stops sniffing her runny nose, and Bertie Cogglestap stops chewing his chewing gum, and Geraldine Maguire takes the battery out of her dying Tamagotchi to stop it beeping. Then Albert puts the first snail on his face, then another, and then another. He gets to 12, and I hear all the Year 4 kids murmur that he won't get any more. But he does. He gets to 13, 14. Everyone cheers and people rush forward to help him put more on because now the snail's on his eyes and he can't see. More, he screams, until he can't shout anymore because the snail's gone into his mouth. But we keep putting them on until it's not just his face, but it's his whole head and his neck too. Then when all the snails are on, there's a big cheer. Everyone's waiting for Albert to say something, but he doesn't move. He just stays slumped against the climbing frame, like he's pretending to be asleep so that he can catch someone out in 40-48. And then Miss Butterwax comes out and rushes over, and she starts taking all the snails off of Albert's face. But it was too late. Albert had suffocated. It's a shame that the Guinness Book of World Records never got to see Albert with 100 snails on his face. I think he would have liked that. It's okay though, because they're coming to school next week. They're going to take a picture of me because I can fit 127 ants in my mouth. Do you want to see?
You know how after a car crash, they leave those things on the side of the road? Only if someone dies, obviously, not just normal crashes. But yeah, when people leave flowers or pictures or little stuffed bears or skateboards or whatever on the side of the road, and then you know that someone died there. Well, I've always fucking hated those. It's just morbid. You know, it takes you right out your day when you see one of those. And they always get so grimy because it's on the side of the road. So I guess it's a nice gesture or whatever to bring some flowers or something. But the thing is, the petals get all toasted and waxy from the exhaust fumes and the photos get all smudgy and burnt. It just doesn't look good, apart from anything else. I mean, that's probably my main objection right there. They're just ugly. So I guess that's what I thought when they did one for Roddy. What's the point? Who's going to go and hang out on the side of a nasty old ring road? I mean, it's where he died, for Christ's sake. That's pretty fucking morbid. Yeah, it's not like it's a happy spot for him, is it? I mean, they could have left all that crap somewhere he loved, like the Emirates Stadium or outside Chicken Kingdom. He would have thought that was fucking hilarious. But no, they put it here, on the side of the North Circular. I mean, if I had to speculate, I'd say that's probably his least favourite spot in the whole world. Because it's the spot where Roddy's spine twisted 180 degrees so that his neck was snapped around to the back of his body. And it's the spot where his brains dribbled onto the car floor for 25 minutes because it took the ambulance so long to get through all the traffic. And it's the spot where I lost my best mate in the whole world. And now it's the spot where there's little stuffed rabbits and bunches of roses like some Valentine nightmare. It just doesn't make sense to me. But somehow, I still find myself here. Cemetery's 20 minutes down the road, but somehow I ended up here, standing up on the bridge by Henley's Corner and looking down at the spot where my best mate died. There's a load of crap lying there. From up here I can see a couple of teddies and an Arsenal scarf tied to the railing. It just looks like rubbish that someone dumped on the side of the road, and I don't know if it's that or the car fumes, but I'm starting to feel a bit sick. And I'm just about to go when I see this guy shuffle over. He's got a huge coat on and he's holding a bin bag, and I can practically smell him from all the way up on the bridge. Anyway, this guy goes over to the railing and unties the Arsenal scarf. And then he just walks away with it. He ties it around his neck and walks off. And I can't help it, but I just pissed myself laughing because I know Roddy would have been so raging if he'd seen it. I can just imagine his stupid, outraged face. Honestly. I just miss him.
Mama says fear is hereditary. It's why we don't like black cats. Why we don't say Prost with water. And why we bring Salzbrot to warm someone's new home. So that they won't go hungry there. It's also why everyone in Blomenberg is afraid of the rats. Not Mama, though. But before the war, I used to think Mama wasn't afraid of anything. She says the fear of rats goes all the way back to the time of the Black Death. My papa is afraid of them. He wrote in one of his letters that they were eating him alive. That's what he says here. I'm being eaten alive. I think Mama is afraid he's going to die. He's not a very brave man. But she won't say she's scared. No one does. No one says that they're afraid that their sons or brothers or papas are going to be blown to bits. No one says that they're afraid we're going to lose the war. That we're already losing the war. No one says they're afraid that Hitler is a madman. They blame it on the rats. It's all just those awful, stinking rats. And of course, our sons and brothers and papas are dying, and we are going to lose the war, and Hitler is a madman. That's why we made the rat pile. This morning, everyone in the town went out with cages and nets and hooks. We watched them from the window, Mama and I, as people ran in the streets screaming and whooping. This is wrong, she said. The streets were thick with people, bodies tumbling past our window and scurrying down alleyways to rummage in bins. And then, of course, the rats. Hundreds of them, fat and black and stupid, but bumbling dizzy along the roads. They gassed them to make them slow, smoked them out of their holes so that 10, 20 at a time crawled out and into our traps. Then the man came, dressed in a black coat with a whiskery moustache. I was afraid that he was going to say that we had to go outside and help catch the rats. But that's not what he said. He said that Papa was dead. When he left, Mama didn't cry like me. She didn't say a word. She stood very still, staring out the window as the sun was setting over the empty streets of Blommenberg. She just stood there watching as people wound their way towards the town square, towards the rat pile. Then suddenly she turned to me. "Get your coat," she said. "We're going." I didn't want to. I didn't want to go at all. But I saw the look in her eyes, and I was afraid. On the streets, only a few people remained. The town square's quite close to our house, and I could hear the noise and feel the heat from all the townspeople as we approached. But worst was the smell. A dirty, a sickly, terrifying stench. Already people were spilling out onto the side roads, all craning their necks and bustling each other to get closer. Mama didn't stop. She pushed through the crowd, her grip on my wrist tightening as she dragged me. My body was crushed in between people, and curses were thrown at our disappearing backs. Mama ignored them until we pushed our way to the front. And there it was. The rat pile. A huge mountain of cages cramped on top of one another, so that I had to crane my neck to see the top, and all full of rats, climbing on top of one another, writhing around so that the whole tower pulsed. And in amongst the cages was kindling. The mayor raised his hand and dropped the match. A lick of flame took the kindling at the bottom, and the rats closest to it began to scramble. Faster now. The flames grew, and the smell of singed fur filled the air. Screams swelled above the crowd. I didn't know a rat could scream. But it can. I heard the sizzle and pop of cooking flesh. My mother stared on, face like stone. And people in the crowd began to whoop and stamp and cheer. The stench of burning flesh burned my nose, mixed with something else. Fear. It was radiating off the rats. The ones at the bottom had now become completely engulfed by flame. I saw one twitching as the skin melted off its back in flame. Its eyes were dribbling out of its socket. "Mama," I whispered. "Can we go?" But Mama wasn't listening. She raised her fist into the air and screamed. "Burn them."
First time I saw her, I was out with my mates. "Whoa, look at her," I said. "Who?" They said, "Her." I said, but she'd already gone. And now I don't believe in love at first sight or anything. I'm not a pussy. But she looked cool. You know, like not the sort of girl I'd usually go for. She had short hair and a sort of I don't give a fuck way of standing. I might have even thought she was a dyke if she didn't have this amazing pair of knockers. So I was sad when I thought I'd never see her again. But I did see her again. I saw her pretty much everywhere after that. But here's the crazy thing. Every time a bus would drive in front or I'd look away for half a second and she'd be gone. And then after about a week of this, the really crazy shit starts happening, right? I was pissing in the Mackie's toilet when her face appears in the mirror in front of me. I was spellbound. She's got these crazy eyebrows and one of those super skinny sort of switchblade noses. I'd never seen that on a girl before. She's like unsettlingly sexy. I'm so captivated, I don't even realise I'm pissing all over my feet. And then she glides forwards and steals a peek at my cock. Cheeky minx. And now get this, she flashes me a tit with these tiny little nipples that look like ice gems. And then she motions to me to follow her, and I do, of course. Women like that flashes you a tit, I'd follow to the end of the earth. And we walked right out of Mackie's, although I couldn't tell where we went after that because I was distracted by her tiny hips, like the hips of a little boy. Eventually we get to this church. You know, I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to be thinking the sort of thoughts I'm thinking in a church, you know. I've got a boner. But I can't help it. I just follow her in, and then she starts to climb this staircase at the back, this old creaky wooden staircase. And then she looks back over her shoulder and, God, what a look. I think I'm just about to come on the spot. And so I follow her up, and it opens out to this bell tower. She's got this sly look in her eye, like she knows something I don't know. And it's driving me wild. I feel my legs propelling me forwards. I can't help myself. I'm hypnotized. But she's moving further and further away from me until I realize she's not even standing on the tower anymore. She's literally floating in midair. And I lose my shit because I can't explain it, but I think that's just about the sexiest thing of all. I don't even care at this point. As I walk towards her and step off the edge, my arms open and ready to embrace her, but as I try to caress her body, I find I can't touch her. I can't hold her. I fall right through her, like literally through her body. And it's like being fucked by the sky. An orgasm on every inch of my skin, like I've died before I've even began to fall. And as I feel myself slip, I try to steal just one taste of her slippery lips, but I'm trying to kiss thin air. I plunge down, and I'm dead. Now listen, I'm not soft or anything. But I kind of thought we had something, me and this chick. I mean, I literally died for her, so I at least thought she'd want to have, you know, some awesome ghost sex or something with me, but she doesn't seem interested anymore. It's a fucking gutter. Oh, and what's worse, right? She's got her eyes on this new guy now, Gav. I know him from down the pub, and let me tell you, this guy is a total wanker. I don't know what she sees in him.
I loved that cat. I fucking loved it to pieces. kept me company all those years. When I had no one else in the whole goddamn world, I had Mopsy. I had no idea what to do then, did I? I mean, after she, I'd never seen a dead thing before, like besides roadkill and stuff. Like I'd seen dead mice and stuff, just like animals. Mopsy wasn't an animal to me. I mean, what was I meant to do? I couldn't move her for the first 3 days. It wasn't even that I was sad. I didn't know what to do. I thought about burying her in the garden. But that's kind of weird. I always thought it was kind of weird when people did that. Well, I couldn't just dump her anywhere, could I? Not my Mopsy. Then by day 3, it starts to get real stinky around the house. Flies and stuff. And I thought to myself, this is a situation that needs dealing with, I mean, you really gotta do something. I think that's why I did it. You gotta do something in these situations. So I come down on day 3 and I have this idea. Like a horrible idea, but there it was. I thought it then. I couldn't unthink it, could I? I had to do it. It's like one of those ideas that's so terrible that once you've thought it, you sort of have to do it because it's like, well, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen. Like after that, it can't get much worse. There's a security in that, Well, anyway, after I thought it, I kind of had to eat her. She didn't taste too good, and I used a mixed spice packet, but it didn't do much. But it wasn't so bad. So it turns out, it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. I could have done something worse. I can do something worse. That's what's so shitty about this whole Mopsy business.